Hello and welcome back to another DIY with Tanaka Lily. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how you turn this sneaker, runners or techies, whatever you call them, into this. Kaboom. Check this out. So if you want to watch how I made this from that, keep watching. If you have been watching and you're enjoying my videos, make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification so you don't miss any of my videos. I promise this year that I'll be bringing out a lot more content. Hi everyone, Happy New Year and thank you for joining me on another DIY. So today I have a very fun, exciting DIY and I am going to do a DIY on my shoes. So these are my runners. Wherever you are, some call them runners, some call them techies, some call them sneakers. I've had this pair for about 4 years and they're definitely not new. I try and avoid wearing them because they're white. And it seems every time I wear them it rains, so they are I should call them my raining shoes. They are Nike brand, but I don't know what type they are. I really wanted a pair of white sneakers or runners and I got this and I hardly ever wear them, so I am going to zhuzh them up, obviously you know me, with some African fabric. Now I was looking for fabric that doesn't have white in it, so this fabric has a bit of off-white, so it's not really white, it's like a cream or off-white color, and this is the only piece I have, so hopefully this will be enough. I am going to put this fabric all around here, and to do that I am going to use my heat and bond. As you know, I've been talking a lot about heat and bond. In my previous video I used heat and bond light, which is the sewable version, which once you press something on, you have to sew it on, you have to sew on top of it again to secure and make sure like it doesn't come off. So this is mainly for sewing projects. Today I will be using this. It's a different heat and bond and I've used this before in my other videos and I have a very small, this is all I have. So this is called heat and bond ultrahold. So this is more for crafts projects, so heat and bond ultrahold, and this is mainly for craft projects, for things that you don't have to sew on. It actually bonds permanently so things won't come off and you can use it for a lot of different things. I've never seen anyone using it on shoes, so hopefully it's going to stay. So it says ideal for fabric, patches, denim, leather, suede and appliques, and it says strongest non-sew adhesive. So among the heat and bond range, this is the strongest and it's non-sew adhesive, so it's the strongest. It's gonna hold everything together. So I did use this on one of my hooded sweatshirts when I just started using heat and bond, and after I'd used it I realized that it makes fabric very stiff, so I wouldn't use this on clothes. I still wear my hoodie but it's very stiff. So let's get into this video. Firstly, I would like to go through the material that I'm using. I'm using my tape, a pen, a pair of scissors, my heat and bond ultra hold, and my African fabric, and obviously my pair of runners. Make sure that the pair of shoes that you're using is clean. So I actually washed my shoes a couple of days ago and they are clean. And the next thing I'm doing is taking my tape and I'm just going over the part that I am going to put the fabric on. So this is masking tape and it's just cheap masking tape. I bought this from I think the $2 shop. Once I've covered the whole area, I'll trace around the part where I want the fabric to go. So that involves tracing around the swoosh and around the perimeter of the area that I want the fabric to go. Once I'm done, I just peel it off, and then I use my pair of scissors to cut around the shape so I know what I'm working with. So that is what I came up with, and I just took the shoe and I laid it on just to see whether I cut it to fit. And once I realized that there were some parts that were slightly smaller, I added a bit more tape and I fixed the issue. So it's always good to do this because you can see exactly how your fabric is going to cover the area, and if there's anything that needs fixing, you can do it before you actually cut the fabric. So that was quite good that I did this. After tweaking around with my pattern, I finally managed to get the right shape for my shoe. I cut out the excess tape, placed it on top of my shoe, and it fit perfectly. Then I proceeded to label my pattern, and once I had done that, I did exactly the same thing for my inner pattern. So these are the two patterns that I have. One is for the outer part of the shoe and the other is for the inner part of the shoe. I realized that I could use these two patterns for both pairs of shoes because the shoes were exactly the same size. So I ended up sticking my patterns onto the back of my heat and bond paper, and then I traced around the patterns with a pen. After I finished tracing around my patterns, I peeled it off very nicely so that I won't rip it because I need to use the same patterns for my other shoe. And then I labeled my patterns so I know which is which. So as you can see, this is what the heat and bond paper looks like. The back side, which is the side that sticks, has got a bit of a pattern. You can see the pattern here. And then the other side, which I drew on, is just the plain side. So that's the plain paper side, which is the part that I will peel off. I then decided to make a pattern of the front part of the shoe. I was a bit worried because that part has a bit of a curve, but it actually turned out pretty good. So when I traced this part down, I made sure that I incorporated the curved part, and so that's why you see me pressing it around the curved area so that I have enough space for the fabric. Once I'm happy with my 3 patterns, I cut out the heat and bond. I've mentioned this in my previous video. If you are going to use a pair of scissors and you're going to cut out heat and bond, make sure you're not using your best pair of scissors because heat and bond does damage your scissors. So I have dedicated this pair to my heat and bond, especially this heat and bond ultra hold. It's very coarse and when you cut it, you can tell that it's damaging your scissors. So I will say there are many ways to cut out your pattern using heat and bond. You can actually stick the heat and bond onto your fabric before you cut out the pattern and trace it on the back, but I chose to do it this way on this design because I wanted to make sure that when I'm doing this part that I'm doing now, I know exactly what the style or what the colors will look like that will go on my shoes. It took me a while to finally decide which areas of the fabric I wanted to use. Once I was certain what I wanted, I mean, with this little one it took me a while, but once I was certain what I wanted with the first two pieces, I just decided to take my iron and hold it onto my fabric. So basically what you do is hold it onto your fabric for 2 seconds at a time, so it's pretty quick. And then with this little piece I ended up going for that part that has the triangle and a little bit of the orange circle. And once I had the place, I just held the iron down for 2 seconds and that was it. Now all that was left for me to do was cut out my pattern again, and this time it has the heat and bond onto it. So all I did was cut around the pattern, and I also went in and I cut the swoosh, which I had not done earlier because I didn't think it was important earlier. Then I peeled off that heat and bond. Now with the ultrahold it's quite tricky to get the thing to peel off. I had to try a couple of times, but finally I managed to peel it off, and that is what it looks like. So it has a shiny residue on the back side, and that's the shiny residue is the one that has glue that will stick and hold onto my surface. So this shoe, it says it's leather, and I'm using this thing. It's a little iron, I think it's called a mini iron, and I'm just holding it down. And the instructions for this heat and bond ultra hold is you press down using your iron for 8 seconds. So I'm just holding it down for 8 seconds. I know it doesn't look like it's 8 seconds because it's fast forwarded. It took a while because the iron wasn't as hot to begin with, but once it started heating up, I could feel the heat from under, so from the back part of the shoe where my hands were. So as you can see, I was holding the iron, counting 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then I would move to the next part, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and it looks like I was just moving the iron all over the place, but I was really holding it down, and it started sticking onto the shoe. So I had to stop and get a knife, a blade, because I had a bit of excess fabric hanging on the corners, and once I cut it off, I managed to press again the fabric into the corner. So I really like this method because I can actually press the fabric into the corner, and look how perfect it is. It looks so good. I didn't have to unstitch anything, and I didn't have to stitch anything. Oh my gosh, I was so happy, and I knew that my project was going to be a very big success. So I proceeded to do the same with the front part of the shoe, and this part, which I thought was going to be hard, it was actually easy. I did cut off the excess before I started sticking it on, because I learned the other way that I had to cut it off after I had started. So I just trimmed those ends, peeled off my heat and bond paper, and then stuck the remaining pattern onto my shoe. And that was how quick and easy that part was. It was so easy. And then now I'm doing the final part, which is the inner part of the shoe, and I'm just doing the same process, peeling it, checking to see whether I need to cut anything further, and then pressing my pattern onto my shoe. So this project is totally straightforward. The only thing you need is this little iron, this mini iron. I purchased mine from Marketplace. So I had been looking for it online and I couldn't find it in any of the shops that had it. I went on Facebook Marketplace and I just typed it in and I saw someone was selling it, and it was actually half the price that they were selling it in the shop. The person had the box and the receipt and everything, and she said it was a gift that she didn't need anymore, because I think the person has a cricket, and so they ended up buying an expensive iron that comes with the cricket machine. And so I was quite happy to purchase this from her and receive it on the same day. So I purchased it and I went and I picked it up rather than buying it online and wait for it to be delivered. So guys, that's me finishing up my first shoe. I'm just putting the lace back on and look how beautiful it is. Oh my gosh, it came out really nicely. And take a look at the two shoes next to each other. So that's the other shoe that I haven't worked on, and that's the shoe that I've finished. What do you guys think? Have you guys ever done something like this? Have you ever tried to cover up your shoes? I've always wanted to do this for the longest time, and I really like this fabric. This is Ndebele fabric, and I'm pretty happy with the results. So for the other pair, the process is exactly the same. The only difference is I had to trace the masking tape pattern facing up. To do that, I placed some tape on the back side of the masking tape, and then everything else was exactly the same. So I've decided to slow this part down so you can see exactly what I was doing. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, even though it's still fast forward, it's not as slow as I wanted it to be. But this iron, you see the front part of the iron, it goes into the corners and into the creases, so I can easily slide it under the swoosh, and then I can actually press it in so it stays.
So I am done, y'all. Do y'all see what I have created? I know I hyped myself. I wish I knew how to lace up these shoes nicely, but look at this pair of shoes. They look so good. So the outside is like this, and then the inside has a bit more orange and green, and all of a sudden this is now my best new pair of shoes.